because the objective here is to get the buyer to do something we want them to do, it makes sense that we have to model first what is the buyer behavior we're trying to change. So again, are we trying to get them to be more loyal? Are we trying to get them to try us for the first time? Are we trying to get them just to recognize that we exist? We think about this awareness, trial, adoption as stages through which every relationship must go through. We do this in our personal relationships. Hi, my name is Ken. Let's go out on a date. We've had enough good dates, so now let's really have a date. By contrast, what would happen if I walked up to a young lady after our session tonight? I walked up to her, and out of the blue, I said, hey, what do you say we go make babies? What would happen? I'd get slapped, wouldn't I? Of course I would. I'll be the first to admit it only works like 1 in 100 times. And it's terrifically expensive when it does. Why? Because we haven't gone through the normal dating protocol. We do the same thing in marketing. We call it the stages of buyer behavior. What does the buyer have to do to make a purchase? Hey, I need something. Let's find out what's available. Let's compare them and make a purchase, and then make a purchase. And then once we've purchased it, let's use it and figure out whether or not they lied to us or whether or not they delivered on our expectation. And the goal here, of course, is we don't want the buyer going through that decision-making process each and every time. We want them to go through it one time, buy from us, and then be so deliriously happy that next time they simply come back and buy it again and again and again. Why? Because every time the buyer comes back up here, we run the risk of losing them to a competitive product. Attached to each of these stages is a specific marketing intent, what we call marketing's mission-critical task. So if I want to stimulate awareness, I'm not trying to convince them I'm the best product. I first need to convince them I have some relevance to their life, that there is an association they should have between me and their problem. Once I've built that association and I want to deliver more information, the question becomes, can I deliver it in the right place? Can I deliver a message that they will understand? And if I deliver that message, will they remember it? Have I done something with the creative product to make it right? Have I figured out what I need to draw their attention to? Do I have the right point of purchase? Do I have the right post-purchase information going out to encourage them to come back? This is vitally important because if we're thinking about trying to build our volume, we can start by diagramming what this overall market looks like. So for example, if I'm starting with 1,000 customers in my region, I can look at it and let's suppose I discover if I were to say to them, name for me all of the suppliers in this category that come to mind, top of mind, and maybe 60% of them would say me. And if that's the state of affairs, then my level of awareness is 60%, and that means my maximum market share is 60%. Because the other 40%, they can't buy a product they don't know exists. If I turn to the 60% that said me, and I ask them the question, tell me all of the brands that you've used in the last, let's say, 3 months. And let's suppose for the sake of argument that half of them said my brand, and half of them gave a list that did not contain my brand. My level of trial would now be 50%, which means my maximum market share is 50% of the 60% or 30%. And if I asked the 50% who had tried my product, if I then said to them, tell me your favorite brand. Well, what if only 25% of them said my brand? Well, now my maximum market share, 25% of the 50% of the 60%, that's my share of users. And that share of users is significant because when I'm trying to forecast sales, my sales revenue will be that share of users times the amount that they spend times the price they pay. My profit will be that amount of sales revenue times whatever my margin is. The reason these formulas become so important is that now instead of thinking about one campaign, I'm actually thinking about 4. I'm thinking about a campaign directed at making more people aware of what it is that I do. Now, for example, if somebody came to me and said, I tell you what, pay me $10,000, and in return for that $10,000, I will make your level of awareness not 60%, but 80%. I'll move 200 people over to this side of the diagram. Is that a good deal? Let's find out. 200 people aware translates into 100 people who try. 100 people that try translates into 25 long-term buyers. If those 25 buyers buy enough product at a high enough price and a high enough gross margin that the product of those 4 terms is more than 10,000, I've now got a self-financing promotion. If it's less than 10,000, I'll lose money by carrying out that promotion. We can do this kind of analysis and we can look at what it takes in order to get somebody to be more aware. Do we do sampling programs? Some kind of other promotion in order to get them to try us the first time under the premise, try us, you'll like us, but you can't eat just one? Or is the purpose of our marketing program to get people who have rejected us already? In other words, this customer is saying, what do you want? I know you exist. I tried your product. It didn't meet expectations. I'll never buy it again. So for this customer, what are we doing? It's not a case of, hey, look at me. Look what I can do. It's not a case of, hey, give me a try. You got no reason to doubt me. I've never lied to you before. Now you've got to say, you know what? I'm sorry. I got it wrong. Try us. New and improved. We have to give the customer a reason to give us another trial. And this customer over here, what are we saying to them? More often than not, we don't talk to them at all. That's why 2/3 of them go to the competition. This customer, we want to say, thanks. Have you bought from us recently? Here's a little something to give you an inducement to buy from us recently. Have you told other friends? Are there other products we could be selling you? This is the loyalty customer that we just finished talking about. And so what you can start to do is, if you think about your buyer in those terms, you can now start to see exactly the nature of the campaign, which objective, how much money to spend, what the right message should be, and so on. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence, if you will, of campaign planning in a nutshell. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of attending to very specific details in a very precise way. Marketing, it's often said, is not a science, it's not an art, it's a discipline. It's a disciplined approach to solving the problem, how much money do we make?